Today's episode on the Breaking Into Device series. Today we are going to be doing a medical device sales resume teardown, where we're going to be looking at this resume and totally reconstructing it from the ground up, section by section, to help this candidate land a role in medical device sales. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. I'll give you a little bit of background on who we are. So, Breaking Into Device is a team of current and former medical device sales representatives, and our only goal is to help you land a role in medical device sales. And in doing a lot of that work, we get so much exposure to different candidates' resumes, and we track, what's working for candidates, what's not working for candidates, and we're actually able to kind of collect a lot of that data on a role and company basis, which we'll see a little bit later. So without further ado, let's just dive into this resume and work section by section and provide you with some resume tips along the way so that you'll be able to pass that resume screen and be able to impress the recruiter and the hiring manager. So we have this resume up here. This is just a sample resume. This is pretty consistent with some of the resumes that we receive from candidates who are looking to break in. Now, the first thing that catches my attention is this font. We want to make sure that our font is either Arial, Times New Roman, something a little bit more traditional. So I'm going to just switch this over to just Times New Roman regular. You can see that kind of adjusted part of the resume here. Something else that I'll look for very quickly too is just to make sure that this resume is under a page. You'd be surprised at how many times we get resumes and it's 3 or 4 pages long. You really need to condense it down to 1 page. That's kind of another goal. We'll kind of go through line by line here and address the page limit as we rework some of these bullet points. So starting with the top here, we typically like folks to center their name and some of their contact information. So up here we have the name. It is a little bit larger font size, which is perfect, and followed by the candidate's address, and actually move this up here so that we have one line so we can save some space. And the next thing we kind of notice here for the email address, the hotmail.com is pretty unprofessional, so we're going to just switch it over to Gmail. I'm also going to change the hyperlink here and just click remove hyperlink so it's a little bit cleaner up on top. So that should be pretty good for the header. The next part that we can tackle is this objective statement. So the objective statement currently reads, seeking to receive an offer in medical sales where I can leverage my background as an account manager and pursue professional interest, excellent communication skills, and exceptional ability to work in a team setting. Okay, so this isn't awful. I think that there's a lot of opportunity here to improve this objective statement that aligns really well with the role that we're targeting in medical device sales. It's really important too that you understand the objective statement that you craft needs to be tailored to the specific role you're applying for. If you are applying for 10 roles in medical device sales, you need to have 10 different resumes, and each resume should be tailored specifically for that role in order to increase your chances of passing that resume screen. So I'm going to just pull up some resources that we have in the Breaking Into Device course. So we actually laid out an objective template that really works for candidates. So I'm going to just copy this over to our resume and we can kind of work from there. In short, what this objective template does is just kind of gives us a nice starter where we have everything in blue. We kind of need to fill in. It's a template. For example, where this one is, we can choose some keywords down here. Where this 2 is, we can choose some keywords down here. Where this 3 is, we could also choose some keywords, so on and so forth. So again, I'm just going to really quickly just copy this over into our resume and we can delete some of this. Okay, so I just pasted some of the text here. Formatting's a little funky right now, but we can definitely change it. As I mentioned, a little while ago, we want to make sure that this statement is tailored for the role that we are specifically applying for. Now, breaking into device two, we put together this medical sales skill mining data sheet. Now, what this kind of data sheet is we went through uh, all of the job postings for different companies, and we have 15 pages for different companies and roles specifically, and we looked and used an artificial intelligence software to actually go through and highlight some of the hard skills and soft skills that are consistently repeated in the job postings. And where we want to leverage these terms is in our resume, because when it goes through that resume screen, the software is going to be looking for the words that kind of correspond to the position. So, for example, we'll want to make sure that we include the words product inventory or product positioning. Similarly, the soft skills, highly competitive, driven, organized, we're going to just want to sprinkle these throughout our resume so that we increase our odds of passing that screen. Okay, so going back to our resume here, you can see, we can kind of see that what we need to do here is enter an adjective. So this is where I'm going to type in highly competitive, and I'm literally just going off of what's mentioned for this particular trauma and extremities role at Stryker that I'm targeting. So the next thing is your current role. So highly competitive account manager, and we'll just say that this individual has 3 years of experience and an exceptional record. And we can just kind of reference, again, if I just go back to our fill in the blank statements here. Let's see. Could say, generating profitable growth through new business acquisition. The sound of that. So generating, paste this in, profitable growth in, so generating profitable growth through new business acquisition in the, it looks like this individual is not exactly sure which industry, but we'll just go with the technology industry. Okay, so this first sentence sounds pretty good. Highly competitive account manager with 3 years of experience and an exceptional record generating profitable growth through new business acquisition in the technology industry. Demonstrated success. And again, I'll just pull this up. We'll say cultivating strong relationships. Cultivating strong relationships with customers while consistently, we'll say, exceeding revenue targets. Exceeding revenue targets by, and then we have this multiple. Now what this multiple is it should be a number or some sort of multiple, like 1.3x, or by, we'll say, 125%, something along those lines. I'm going to just stick with the, say, 1.5x here. And it's really important that somewhere in your objective statement that you have some sort of number to speak to what you've done. If you have experience in sales, or really if you have experience in sales, it should be revenue focused or sales targets or percent to plan, something like that. And if you don't have any sales experience, that's not a problem. Just try to choose some driver that demonstrates that you have grown something. That's really what they're looking for here. And you want to highlight that in your objective, because this is going to be the hiring manager and the recruiter's first impression of you, and you want to make sure that you demonstrate that you are numbers driven and that you can quantify your impact. Okay, it's a long-winded, long-winded way to say really make sure that throughout your resume you add a bunch of numbers. Let's move on to this third statement here. So again, seeking advancement in this role vertical. Again, I'm just going to reference this sheet here, but really this should be, orthopedics, cardiovascular, joint replacement, whatever you're targeting. If you recall, we're targeting that trauma and extremities role. So I'm going to say trauma and extremities device sales role. We could even add app striker to make a, then we have impact while benefit to company. And again, we can just say tangible impact while growing the territory. I'll make a tangible impact on patients while growing a territory. Okay. And you can trim this down a little bit, but I think for now this serves as a great foundation for your objective. Now we can move on to this next section. Professional interest, just healthcare, pharmaceutical sales, medical sales, biotechnology. I think we're good to just remove this entire section. I mean, hopefully you're interested in medical sales. Otherwise, you shouldn't be applying for a role. Additionally, although it is good to have a lot of professional interests, such as pharmaceutical sales, your role in the recruiting process for medical device sales is really to just be targeting a medical sales role, and you need to convince the hiring manager that you are 100% dedicated to this specific role. So by including your other interests, the hiring manager could come back and say, why don't you pursue pharmaceutical sales then? Or why don't you pursue something else in healthcare? So in order to remove that ambiguity, we're just going to remove this section here. It looks like this individual listed 3 different work experience sections. We can just kind of focus in this video, so it doesn't get too long, on reworking these 5 bullet points here. Start by just bolding this work experience section, just some very minor formatting that we can do here. Next, I'm going to actually reformat this line here, this account manager with the name of the company, location, and dates work, just because it does look a little bit condensed and I want to move it out more. So I'm going to move this all solutions down here, which is the name of the company, and I'm going to shift the date here, and I'm going to move this location down here. Okay, now that some of this is out of the way, we can start with the bullet points. So you want to keep your resume bullet points between 3 and 5. Sometimes we'll get resumes that have like 10 plus bullet points, and that's just way too much for someone who's glancing at it to digest. Now, the first thing that really strikes me about this resume is that there are no numbers, and it doesn't necessarily matter if you have sales experience or marketing experience or some more clinical experience. Regardless of what experience you have coming into medical device sales, it is so important to make sure that you actually quantify those achievements. By not quantifying the achievements, you're more or less indicating to the hiring manager that you are not a numbers-driven person, and it is essential that before you get into medical device sales that you demonstrate that you are always thinking about your numbers, how you can hit those numbers, and the first step in doing so is making sure that you communicate your numbers clearly on your resume. So let's go line by line just for this first example so I can start to illustrate some of those points. So the first bullet point is manage 10 plus accounts in expanded territory. So the 10 plus accounts is actually a pretty good number we want to keep, but the question lingers, how did you expand the territory? What are the revenue metrics? What are your sales dollars here? When did you expand the territory? So you're going to want to add some sort of dollar figure to that, as well as a time frame. So let's just kind of rework this a little bit. So we can add this to maybe like oversee 10 plus. I'm actually going to just add customer accounts, leave the and expanded territory. And again, I'm going to just add in some numbers. Now you obviously need to make sure that these numbers are correct. For the purpose of this example, I'm just going to assume that this individual expanded the territory by 500,000. And then I added this fiscal year 19, so we account for that time. And that's just one way to really spruce up this first line. Let's look at the second line. Proficient in building exceptional customer experiences through engagement and great service. Now, I think that this point is good. I would push the individual to think, how were you kind of recognized for this great service? Were you acknowledged by a customer? Did you receive any sort of award? And I would articulate this point through that. So again, in this case, let's just assume, perhaps this individual received some sort of recognition. So I would list that out on the resume. So let's say they received the Rising Account Manager Award. Again, we probably want to indicate when that was received. We'll say it's fiscal year 19. And here's another trick too. We'll say for consistently delivering exceptional client service. Now, I added this word client service pretty intentionally here. And the reason is because if I toggle back to medical sales data mining sheet that we kind of put together, you can see that client service is a keyword that we want to include in our resume because it's repeatedly mentioned in the Stryker trauma associate positions. So I strategically added that keyword so that our resume will get flagged. Okay, awesome. So we can move on to the next one, charged with increasing customer satisfaction. Okay, so I think that, again, we can kind of work with this here. We want to quantify this increasing customer satisfaction. And I would push this candidate to think about, how is customer satisfaction currently measured at their company? A lot of companies will measure things like customer churn rate, perhaps, or any customer surveys. Really push yourself to think, how can I quantify this? So if I'm going to rework this here, I would suggest maybe decrease customer churn rate. Again, you may need to look at some of your records and see kind of where you can quantify. So decrease customer churn rate by 15%. Again, we'll add kind of a year over year or some sort of time description. And we'll say through strategic account management. Again, account management, come back here. You can see that account management is a hard skill that we're going to want to include in our resume. Next, tasked with training new team members when they are onboarded to the department. I think this is actually really great. It demonstrates kind of teamwork, collaboration. What we can do to spruce this up a little bit is we can say, perhaps they were selected by upper management to develop an onboarding program for 30 plus new hires. We'll say, again, what was the result of this? We'll say that reduced the onboarding cycle by 5 business days while improving work quality 20%. You can see that we have a really nice outcome here. Not only are we quantifying the amount of people that this particular candidate had impact on, but also what the outcome was. We reduced the onboarding cycle for a new employee while also maintaining or improving upon that quality. So lastly, experience cold calling customers. Again, I think this is a really fantastic point to walk into. We'll just adjust the language here a little bit more. So expertise, cold calling customers. We want to quantify as customers. So 50, say new customers. Again, what is the time frame? Say per day. To introduce product portfolio. Again, this product portfolio is a keyword. If I come back here, you can see that product portfolios right up here. Okay, introduce product portfolio. And here's another interesting kind of tactic we can use when we're writing our resume for medical sales. It'd say that we closed 70% more calls than the average account manager. Now, this is a interesting way to quantify our achievements where we're actually baselining what we did compared to others. We're saying we closed 70% more than the average account manager. Now, that kind of demonstrates that you are not only doing a great job hitting your numbers, but you're doing significantly better than a lot of other people. And that is a really important concept that you're going to have to understand walking into medical sales. You are going to be compared to other folks on your team, in the industry, in your region. So if you can quantify that you will go above and beyond most other people, you will do incredibly well in the industry. I'm just going to add a couple of periods here just from a formatting perspective. I may just kind of remove this word consistently so that all of these are, nice and clean. We have our 5 bullet points, and I think that this makes a significant difference on your resume. Not only did we include some of the keywords that hiring managers and recruiters are looking for, but we also were able to demonstrate the exceptional way to quantify some of these achievements. Complete, we can move on to the other sections. As I mentioned, I'm not going to go through the same process that we just went through for the other 2 bullet points, but it's implied that on your actual resume, you'll kind of apply that same logic that we just went through for that first job experience to every single experience on your resume. And the same goes for formatting too, just making sure that everything's in a consistent format. So next up, we have our skills section. It looks like we currently have 5 different skills: the cold calling, teamwork, cross-selling, customer satisfaction, exceeding sales goals. Now, at face value, I think that these are all great. I think that there's a lot of room that we can do to improve some of these skills. Now, the skills that you list on your resume under the skills section should be some of the hard skills. Again, I'm just going to reference this document here. Hard skills are something that's more tangible versus soft skills is something a little bit more intrinsic. So hard skills, we should be including like product inventory, account management, product positioning. So what I would do here is I would just maybe take some of the first 4. There are a couple here that, like for example, surgical procedures, even though that's preferred for associates, most people, I'd say probably 99% of the associates who are coming in entry level do not have any surgical procedure experience. That's totally fine. If you do have any sort of clinical experience, please go ahead and list that more technical or nuanced hard skill on your resume under skills. But for most people applying, that shouldn't be a deterrent. So I'm going to just, again, copy some of those over to the resume. So I'm going to just put them in here. I'm just going to do some quick formatting. I'm going to actually just go ahead and eliminate these ones that we have, just because you know that we're kind of anchoring on the ones that are actually required for the job based on kind of our research. So the next step is going through, and you can add a very brief description to each one of these. So product inventory, we can say something like, say, skillful at tracking and controlling inventory throughout the supply chain. These don't have to be super detailed, just a very high level, what these skills encapsulate. So for account management, we could say experience managing high value customers and driving them through the sales cycle. For product positioning, we can add adept at identifying target market, location, and product positioning. And then lastly, for client service, could add consistently I'm just going to make this look a little bit cleaner here just by italicizing that. And I will fix some of my spelling mistakes, and we should be good for the skill section. I'm just going to bold this as well so that the work experience and sales section are aligned. Okay, now before we move on to the education section, I want to add a certification section down here. And let me just do this real quick. Now, I know what you're thinking. A lot of people don't have any sort of certifications when it comes to medical sales or anything clinical. Something that our team Breaking Into Device does is we actually partner with a certifying agency to get you certified in 13 medical related certifications, and that's all included in the course. You can just get those certifications online. It's pretty quick and easy. I believe that the certifications, maybe take an hour, and it's a really great way for you to differentiate yourself in the interview process. Actually, when you become a full medical sales rep or an associate, a lot of the hospitals require you to get these certifications before you even enter into the facility. So in doing these certifications ahead of time, you're demonstrating that sort of initiative to the hiring manager while differentiating yourself in the process. Now, I'm going to just type out some of these certifications here. So the first certification that we kind of offer is this operating room protocol certification. And again, it's all online. We can add, there'll be like a certification number. We can just kind of make this up here. And we can do, that's down here. We can just say it expires, and we'll say January 2023. Again, just little formatting stuff. Okay, and I'm going to just copy this line down because we're going to copy the same format. Another certification that we offer is the HIPAA for business associates. I'm just going to change the certification number slightly. And I'm going to add just one more. Typically we won't add all 13 certifications to a resume just because it does get a little bit cumbersome and a little bit diluted, but we can add just one more. Perfect. Now we're good to go. And something else too about these certifications that we offer, you can add them to your LinkedIn and all got flagged by recruiters, so definitely think worth the investment. So now, not only do you have a fantastic skill section broken out, but you also have kind of the more clinical side of things that recruiters and hiring managers would really appreciate an associate coming into to have. Now, let's take a look at the education section. So it looks like this candidate has a bachelor's in marketing and also lists out the high school. I'm just going to kill the high school part of it. Not super relevant, especially if you have a college degree. So we have our Bachelor of Science in Marketing in 2016 from University of California, San Diego. I'm going to make sure that this formatting down here is kind of consistent with the formatting that we have up here, where we have our date first, our location. We can add the university and major over here. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so now that this is, looking pretty consistent with the other lines we have up here, what we can do is look at some of the relevant coursework. So it looks like we have finance, statistics, biology. Okay, this looks kind of like just a dump of different courses that the individual has taken. You have to think about when you include relevant coursework, if you include it at all, make sure that it's relevant to a role in medical device sales. Now, statistics, I would say not super important. Finance, I think we could leave it on here. Microeconomics, research, strategy, marketing, a little bit less important. Computer science, not super important. You can keep, I'm almost opted to remove the business leadership. You could keep introduction to anatomy. I think that's great. Any sort of like anatomy course you take that I think will be great to highlight, or any kind of hard sciences. see, we have clubs, marketing association, Kappa Kappa Gamma. I would definitely remove um, any sort of affiliation with respect to Greek life. Don't know what people's opinions are on that, so I would opt just to err on the safe side. Marketing Association Club, unless you have some sort of leadership position that you want to highlight or you've won any awards, I probably would just remove it. Okay, so that takes us to about a page here. So this is looking really great. So if we start from the top here, just a brief summary of what we did. We went through the header, totally redid the objective statement, reworked some of the work experience, quantified wherever we could. We added the skills listed from our sheet. Certifications, we added all of the different certification numbers, expiration date, and then the education, we just cleaned that up a little bit. One thing I'm just going to do too is I'm going to change the font color just to all black. I think that's just a little bit easier for us to read. So there we have it. We've just finished kind of our first medical device sales resume teardown. Hope you learned a lot with respect to how you can better position your resume. Check out breakingintodevice.com, and we're going to be sharing a lot more tips here on how you can best position yourself for medical device sales. We have a comprehensive course that goes through videos exactly like this, but in a lot more detail. Certifications available. You also get one-on-one coaching with current and former medical sales reps. We also do offer a resume review service where we guarantee you an interview where you get half your money back. So if you're interested in working with me or anyone else in our team, please feel free to reach out. More than happy to help answer any questions and ultimately help you get a job in medical device sales.